Hi, good morning. My name is Amy Marone. I'm with Sensorium Hypnosis, and today I have guest and client Lindsay here. And Lindsay and I are going to share with our audience a little bit more about an energy healing session that I had with her horse, Ryder. Welcome, Lindsay. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be back. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, absolutely. So, Lindsay, today we're going to start out a little bit about, I would love for you to share more about the history of Ryder's story. Share a little bit with our audience the challenges, the health challenges that the horse was having, and what inspired you to reach out to me. So take your time and tell your
Oh yeah,
story.
kind
Yeah,
of a long story.
yeah.
So I call Ryder my horse because my parents let me ride him. But technically he is my parents' horse. They needed a third horse because my mom's horse was lame. So they went and when they were in the market, they were looking for another horse and so I'm going to speak some horse language that I know Amy might not totally understand, but that's fine. She'll learn as we go here. But
Yeah.
we so we're headed more towards a gaited horse. So my mom's horse is a gaited horse. So it's just a certain way that they walk. It's a lot more, it's more comfortable and you can traverse a lot more trails and you can go for longer distances. They're more of an endurance horse. So my parents, we do trail riding. Um, so they were in the market and we were looking at Tennessee Walkers. So Ryder was one of the only ones in the area that was for sale at the time, but he is it, of course, it's divine how it all works out, right? Like
Mhm.
they pick you and you pick them beforehand. You don't even know
Yeah.
that, but so he is a Palomino Tennessee Walker, and they bought him when he was 6 years old. So the history of him is he came from Missouri all the way up to Washington. And so I believe he was 3 when that happened. And so that's a long trek. I know horses do it all the time, but as we get into Ryder's story, it might make a little bit more sense why I'm saying that. So, we found him and went and looked at him, and he seemed like a great horse, super calm, super sweet, like kind of like you couldn't really connect to him, but we're like, oh, he's new. We're new to him, so we'll get to know him more as we get along. But the person that was selling him, it was very interesting. She had a lot of nervousness. And
Mm.
so we could pick up on that. And so at one point, it was my turn to ride him in the arena. She had a big arena. We like to gallop. And so one of the things, we're not like true gaited horse people. So one thing's about gaited horse owners is they typically do not gallop. So gallop is just going really fast. So it gets them out of their gait. And a lot of gaited horses are trained not to gallop. So like they could be harshly reprimanded if they gallop. And so we kind of found this out like later after
Mhm.
I attempted to gallop him around the arena. And so it was interesting, my mom's reaction. She was like, oh my gosh, like no, like don't do that. And so it was just interesting. And so they ended up getting him. And my mom, they noticed right away that he acted like a totally different horse once they got him home.
Mm.
So yeah, we're like, okay. So one of the main things was my parents have their horses free in a field where
Mhm.
we bought him from. She sells horses, like she buys them, brings them up here and sells them. That's her
Mhm.
thing. But he was in a very small paddock outside and then a stall. So he was in there most of his time. And so we're like, oh, well, maybe he likes the freedom of being in the field, but he was almost impossible to catch for like a week.
Wow.
And so he kind of was like coming to life a little bit more, and he's getting a little bit more gusto, but you could see it in his eyes that when you would try to catch him, he's like, I don't know about you. I don't know if I
Ah.
trust you. And so like, oh, this is so interesting. So eventually, like it took a week, like literally a week before my parents could go up and catch him in the field. And so then there's just kind of interesting things like that. And so, like when they bought him, the woman could fly spray him. So this is something you might not know, but when a lot of horses don't like to be fly sprayed with like a spray bottle, it's very like sensory overload for them. And so when she did it, when we bought him, he just stood there kind of like a drone, like he was perfectly fine. And so then when my parents started doing it, he danced around, it was all over the place. So like, what is going on? So we don't know what was happening, what the difference, if he was depressed or if he was drugged. We're not quite sure what was happening, but we just know that he's not the same horse that we bought necessarily. It's still a very sweet, still a very wonderful ride. Like nothing to be like concerned about, but it was just these little indications that kind of were like, oh, this is interesting. Like, why doesn't he trust us? And then like he had more of a admiration towards my father versus my mom or I. So even though he's a little bit of a smaller horse, so my parents don't like to put my dad on smaller horses, but he loves when my dad rides him because my dad's a big guy. So so it's just like these really weird quirks that we were always kind of like picking up on. And so we just had a lot of kind of thoughts about things, and especially when he started having his problem. So
Yeah,
he
let's
was
talk about the problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll get into the problem. So now a year later, he started developing watery stool. So it was when with a palomino, they have white tails and tan golden fur. So when you have a watery stool situation happening, it's very messy and it's constantly staining his tail, staining his whole backside. It's like this whole big thing, and it was happening constantly. And my parents tried a lot of different things. So they actually dealt with it for 5 years before I talked to you, and we'll get to what we did. But they did as all the things that you could possibly do, but the only thing that really kind of helped was this all natural like digestive supplement that was very expensive. So it cost him like $400 a month just for his supplement. And the vets were like, oh, after a couple months you can start weaning him off and back it down and it'll be better. And every time they're like, okay, like he's getting better, and then they'd wean him off, and then bam, it would come right back again, and it'd be like worse as ever. Like nothing really changed at all. So then so what happened next? So then they just dealt with that. I don't even know how long it was. I think it was like 2 years on the supplement of dealing with this high cost supplement that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. And so then we started noticing a couple things that whenever he was having an emotional response, this would happen. So for instance, when they go riding, if it's just the two of them, they rotate the horses so they each get a turn. Well, it was riders' turn to stay behind. And so horses are herd animals. They want to be with their herd. They don't want to be left behind. They don't like it. And so this was when they were camping. So when they came back, he was just a watery stool mess. And my mom said it was the worst she'd ever seen. He was running around. You could see him that he had been running around the corral, and there was just stool everywhere. And it's like, and when you're camping, it's harder to deal with as well, too. So they were like, oh, so that kind of signified to them, let them know that, oh, it's more of an emotional. So anytime he's heightened, it would seem to happen more. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, Lindsay, and thank you. A question that I have, and it's just to clarify for the greater audience. Want to talk about how this impacts mom.
yes, that's important. So she is a perfectionist. We'll put it that way. I'll just
Okay.
label it that.
Yeah.
But to her, having a beautiful Palomino horse, you don't want him to look like he's all
Mhm.
dirty and yucky
Uh-huh.
and messy, especially when you
Yeah.
add the whole poop thing into it. That's a whole
Yeah.
nother dimension of it.
Yeah.
So it became like an obsession with my mom to, so they had this whole routine of cleaning his tail, cleaning his bottom. It's like constantly every other day. Like it was
Yeah.
consuming so much of their time, and it was all in the of how it looked, right?
Okay.
Like
Okay.
like they didn't really know what was going on, and it was they're worried because they don't know, is it something more than just
Yeah.
digestive, but nothing was coming up on that, like, and they're like, nope, he's checking out fine. So, and of course the vets are working with the physical, they're not working with the
Sure.
emotional or
Yeah.
the psychological. So it's interesting because my mom's so focused on, hyper focused on him, when it comes out, it's they were very cohesive in this journey together.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, yep. She really wanted him to look like a beautiful, picture perfect
Mhm. Mhm.
Hollywood Palomino all
Uh-huh.
the time.
Uh-huh.
So he was testing her on that. So it was
Yeah. Yeah.
very interesting.
Well, and if you could speak to the energetic exchange that's happening between your mom, who's the primary caregiver for the horse, and the horse, and how their energies are affecting each other, that would be helpful. Any insights that you have or that she had looking
I
back at
it's
this
it's
time.
not until after. So we
Mm.
yeah, after your healing session
Mhm.
with all of us,
Right.
then we're able to see it differently. So I don't know, maybe you want to talk
Uh-huh.
about what happened before that,
Sure,
because
sure.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. And
because she
well,
had no clue. She had no clue that it
right,
was a huge part of
right.
her perfection needing situation
Yes,
going
right.
on.
That her anxiety is impacting and feeding this emotional distress the horse is experiencing, right?
Yeah.
Well, and so I'll share with our audience, some of whom may be listening, some of whom may be watching, that Lindsay, I think, approached me on a couple different occasions to see, if first, if I knew anyone who did energy work on horses, and I didn't. And then I think approached me maybe a second or third time. It came up in conversation. The one time I remember us talking about this was at the self-healing workshop I did for humans.
Yes.
And I remember we were engaging in conversation. And there was a point at which Lindsay shares, hey, we've looked high and low, we're still not able to find someone. And then a light bulb goes on in my head, and I thought, gosh, I have no experience working with horses, but heck, I'm willing to give this a try. I had done hundreds and hundreds of energy healing slash hypnosis sessions with clients for years. I'm entering my ninth year, and so knowing who Lindsay is also, and the depth of our relationship and our mutual trust and respect for each other, I decided I was going to take it on. And Lindsay and I prepared to spend an entire day up in Bellingham together, in which Lindsay gave me a crash course on horses, including warning me about boots and all the things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna fast forward to the actual day we did the energy healing session. and your impressions of what took place on that day.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised because I'd been working with you, right? So I think I was surprised by I could see the change of your demeanor. So like you became very hyper focused. Like that was really interesting to me. So you're kind of, were you matching the frequency of the horse? So you're trying to pick up with him? I
Yes.
don't know. It was just
Yeah.
very interesting to observe. And you were very calm and very loving and kind and where like that, so that was interesting to observe that. But of course I had no doubt that you could do it. That you could help us. I knew you could. And especially because back when I was asking you, you did mention, oh, I've worked with cats and dogs. Like, and I was like, well, I'm a big horse. Who cares? It's so
Horse
different.
is
You can do it.
different, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah.
absolutely. Well, and Lindsay, I'll admit to at least 1 week prior to connecting with Ryder, connecting with him energetically,
Yeah.
and sending healing energy to him, trying to get a sense of his story. I had the backstory from you, but trying to understand what's going on emotionally, internally in the horse, and then approaching Ryder very, very gently, right? It's really, really important that the horse immediately picks up energetically for me the love piece and the compassion and the approachability and the openness. And I was just kind of feeling his energy out and giving him a chance to warm up with me. And I will say there was it was probably one of the highlights of my um, work. It stands out to this day. There's a moment in time where Ryder and I, like, our faces just move close together and we're just nose to nose, and I could feel his breath on my face, and we were just exchanging so much love and understanding. And I'm just kind of gently stroking the horse and relaxing him, trying to get him in the most receptive state possible. And honestly, I went through a lot of the same. I mean, I'm getting downloads of what the horse is wanting to communicate. That shocked and surprised me, I'll be honest,
Oh,
that
okay.
I could share. But I'm also moving, opening up his spiritual pathways. And I am, while at first going through the same process of trying to remove energetically any unhealed trauma, right? Releasing it, we could hear and feel and sense the horse kind of wiggling around and moving and responding to this, which that absolutely surprised and delighted me. But then, toward the end of the session, and this was over an hour, we
Oh
spent
yeah.
quite a bit of time there, was moving this high frequency energy through Ryder, right? And attempting to restore him to a state of complete emotional quietude, right? Where we reintroduce his mind and his body to a very, very peaceful, calm state where his digestive system would be less reactive, right, to his
Yeah.
past trauma and to any additional trauma, right, that this anxiety dynamic between caregiver and horse had been inadvertently exchanging, right?
Yeah.
So it was and I felt, I could feel his energy. Do you remember some of the things and I know this is going back a little while, some of the things I may have been able to share with you and your
Yeah.
mom? Okay.
100%. Yeah. So when you're talking about that moment, so I remember you're talking to him, you were speaking to him as well too. And he did end up having one of these watery stool
Yes.
moments.
Yes.
And you're like, let it go, sweetie, just let it go.
Uh-huh.
And that was it was very helpful for my mom
Mhm.
because that's what, because you also had communicated too that this was his only form of control that he had. It was his only form of being able to detox his trauma. So then the issue he was having was he wanted to detox this way. However, he was disappointing my mother by doing it. So then he was having a battle between himself of, well, I need to detox this way to get the trauma out because now I'm safe, now I'm loved, now I enjoy life, but I can't do it 100% because I will disappoint it's like his mom, So, so he didn't want to disappoint her. And so that was really powerful to my mom. I feel very moved right now. So sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It was an incredible experience. Just wonderful.
But I just remember how much it helped my mom to realize like, wow, she's thinking she's just creating suffering for herself in the moment of like needing things to be beautiful all the time. And instead she's realizing she's actually making it harder for Ryder.
Wow.
And so that was just beautiful. Like it was a big lesson for my mom, for sure.
Yeah. Well, no, it's so, these moments are so authentic and so healing for everyone involved in that horse's life. And I remember telling your mom that, and I love those words that you used, Ryder's finally safe. And sharing an insight with your mom that, he's able to finally release his trauma because he feels this incredible unconditional love. A lot of caregiver moms, anxiety is, I'm missing something, I'm doing something wrong, he's not happy here, he's not healthy, maybe we're not doing enough. All those things that a mother can feel with a child, right? And I remember comparing this to, a child who's throwing up, right? This is a good thing. The body is detoxing, it's getting rid of things. And I might also share with the audience that there are times that I'm doing deep healing work with my clients that they have to use the bathroom. They have to, right? Our toxins, emotional and physical toxins, there's a finite number of ways we can release that, right? Through sweating, through, excretions, through, using the restroom, getting rid of, solid waste or urine. It has to move through somewhere. And what I was attempting to do is to create the most warm, therapeutic environment for the horse to begin to just continue to release that trauma. And I remember telling your mom, like, this is a process. Do you remember the time frame I estimated? And don't ask me how this information came through me. By the way, Lindsay, know I'm not an expert in horses. I'm from upstate New York. I came from a village where the houses were all on top of each other. None of my family or friends had horses. So I didn't heavily research this other than what you and your mom shared with me. So during these energy healings with humans or horses or cats or dogs, information comes through me. And I would love for you to share whatever you remember about the time frame, and then any other commentary from you and your mom about the things that happened over the months to follow.
Yeah. So you originally said it was going to be 3 to 6 months before for him to fully release everything and kind of heal and have this not really be an issue anymore. And I asked, like, when we were prepping to talk about this, I was like, Mom, like, how long did it take? She's like, it was 90% better the next day.
Oh my
Like,
God. By the way,
like,
this is news to me. I
yeah.
did not know this. I'm
Yeah,
just
she's
finding
like,
this out now.
she said it took 1 day. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, it was 90% better. She's like, and then eventually, I think she said it just took like another month for it to kind of just stop
Yeah.
completely. And so I asked, did he have issues now? And they're like, like nothing like what it used to be.
Wow.
Like nothing. Like
Wow.
they don't have to do the whole production anymore all the time. But yeah, but she had learned from this healing to just let it go. Right. That's
Yeah.
like a big message to a lot of us. That's my personal message, not related to horse butts, but it related to other things in life. Like you just got to let it go, like just flow with it. And so yeah, that the 3 to 6 months, and then my mom's like, okay, and then bam, it was better almost immediately, they said.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
and especially because my dad is not so open to these different ways of trying to heal, but he was open to it because he's like, why not? Like nothing else has worked, right? But he's not as invested as like I am, and I know things will get better, you know, with some kind of a healing thing. So even him, he's like, oh no, it much better. Like so it's interesting now though, because it gives us a barometer, or it's a type of tool to see how he's doing emotionally. So for some reason, of all the horses they've ever had, Ryder is a very emotional horse. So I don't know why, I don't necessarily know, but they know that if he does feel anxiety, they can read it in him a lot better now after you being able to communicate his messages. Then they kind of are like, oh, that's interesting. So they kind of pay attention. And they recently moved to a different property, and it is extraordinarily peaceful. Like they were dealing with like a lot of, it was the biggest homeless camp in Bellingham, was their border of their property. And so they thought, because he would always look at that area of the property when he was eating, and so they're excited to see now, like, is he even more calm than he was even then? So I don't know, it's just interesting that we can gauge his emotions now more by how his stool is doing, I guess. But
absolutely, sure.
yeah.
Well, and such a beautiful understanding now that, you know, as owners of horses or cats or dogs, or remember that animals are very, very receptive, right? And to our energy. They read it, they feel it, right? And we've known this for forever, for a very long time, right? With therapy animals, support animals, that they can sense when their owners are not feeling well. They're receptive. So as we approach animals with special needs, health issues, emotional traumas, whatever it is, that, you know, we should check in with ourselves and make sure to get centered, to get emotionally, spiritually grounded before we approach, right? Step into the energy of an animal, because we are we can bring such love and healing, compassion to our animals, and help them move through a trauma that may be manifesting physically, right? And we can open our minds and hearts to understand that animals have such tremendous light and love, right, to give back to us. And there's this incredible synergistic relationship going on. And so, Lindsay, I know that before you and I scheduled this interview to share this story with our audience, you got some feedback from your mom, and I know you took some copious notes there. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you can think of? Maybe we covered it all, and that's perfectly fine. Is there anything else that you can think of that your mom noticed that we might want to share with others?
Yeah. Well, I'll say the first part, which was pretty funny, because when after you left, she's like, I was not expecting Amy to be like that at all. And I was like, well, what were you expecting? And she's like, I don't know, but I didn't expect her to be this beautifully wonderful, very put together, very professional. Like, she wasn't expecting that at all. So I thought that was really funny. And I was like, well, who do you think I've been hanging out with this whole time?
Right.
So yeah, I think she could see, because she's very beautiful and put together, and just like presents, you guys both present yourselves as very loving, kind, wonderful humans. So I think she saw a lot of herself in you, like you being a younger version of her. And so I think that really opened the door for her to be able to let you in for her healing too, right? Because that's just for my mom and I, the most shocking thing was that it was really all about my mom. Like, it really didn't have anything to do with Ryder. Like, Ryder was on his own journey of doing his own thing and trying to do it without affecting anybody, but it was really my mom's lesson. And so that's where the power of the human and the animal connection together is so sweet. Like obviously he was brought to her to teach her this, like, so now she can apply it to other things in life as well. And so she said that it really helped, this healing session with you really helped her to realize that animals know what we're thinking and feeling, and to communicate to them more. And so during the time of his healing, because one of your questions was, what were you doing during that time, right? And she said, oh, I would just pet him and say I love you, and how much she loved him, and how much she appreciated him, and all these wonderful things. Like, so she's totally ignoring whatever the physical issue is, because it's not important anymore. And so so my mom is the type of person that has a very clean, very tidy house, like ritual vacuuming, cleaning, like, so I think this helps her to apply that to the rest of life. Like, if something doesn't look perfect, it's not the end of the world. It's like,
it's okay.
Just let it go.
Well, and it's a huge lesson in where we place our focus,
right?
What we choose to focus on, and also in loving people and animals right where they're at, right? Just being able to just love them unconditionally, and to be that supportive force through everything. And truth be told, right, the animals, especially horses and dogs or whatever, whether it's rescue or an animal that we get many months or years after birth, I mean, there's a history there, right? And we have to be sensitive and open and aware. And a lot of dealing with animals comes from an intuitive level, right? It's a higher mind. We know about horses and dogs and animals, but a lot of times we have a gut level feeling, right? And to trust that. So what an amazing experience this was for me in working with my very first horse. And what an incredible respect I've gained for owners of horses, and how much time and energy and resources and love they put into caring for these magnificent spiritual creatures. And so
it was interesting when watching you with him, because he normally ignores people. and he was not doing that with you. So it was
Uh-huh.
very interesting. He was very curious about you. He
Uh-huh.
like clearly it was like, can she hear me? She can hear me. Like, oh, what are you doing? So it was so interesting to see that because
Yeah.
he's a very kind horse, but he is a little bit chauvinistic. So
Uh-huh.
so
I made inroads with the
yeah.
female
Yeah,
people. Yeah,
you were
that's
healing
great.
that, and that's part of what we always wondered too, is if he had such a negative experience at the place that we bought him from, that he looked at all women as like he kind of had that trauma with women,
Sure,
you know,
as
like
authoritarian
yeah,
figures,
yeah.
right?
So,
Uh-huh.
but the women were the ones mainly riding him. So,
Yeah,
so and
yeah.
then here comes a healing woman to come
Uh,
help him. So,
that-
so I think it helped.
Interesting.
Of course, it helped him too. But I just like remembering you telling us like what he's saying, what he's thinking. It just put all the pieces together, and
Mhm.
so like that's the most mind blowing and the most healing aspect is being able to comprehend what was going on and
Mhm.
to get that complete understanding. It's like, oh, okay, that makes
Yeah,
much more sense now, whereas opposed to like, I don't know what's going on.
yeah,
And so it's just like what you do is such an amazing tool for anybody and everybody to just get more understanding to
sure,
what's
sure.
happening with
Oh,
yourself or with your horse. So it's so powerful.
thank
I was
you.
just so blown away. It was so
Oh,
exciting. And I know it was new, so that was
yeah,
even more exciting to be a part
yeah.
of too. But
Oh,
I don't think it matters if you know about horses or cows or
yeah,
giraffes. Like it really
yeah,
doesn't matter. You would
yeah.
do a great job with anything
Oh.
and everything.
Well, thank
100%.
you. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you so much. Any other, well, that was pretty comprehensive. Is there
Mhm.
anything you would like other horse owners, caregivers to know about, energy healing and the
Yeah.
work that we did? Any message you want to send out to our greater audience of horse owners?
Yeah. Well, I think even if you're just a little bit curious or a little bit open to this, I think it would be so powerful
Mhm.
to get a connection with
Right,
horse, right?
right.
So
Uh-huh.
so I believe that we used to be able to do this on our own and we didn't
Yeah.
need Amy to do it for us,
Sure,
but
me
you're a great
too.
reminder to our heritage of being able to connect. And so it's just
Right.
such a missing link. Like so
Yeah.
the movie Avatar, I don't know if people
Uh-huh.
know this, but they
Uh-huh.
take their braid and they connect it to their animal and they're
Yeah.
connected together. Like that's what we should be doing energetically all the time,
Right.
not just like it doesn't have to be a physical connection like that really, but that was a good symbolization of
Yeah.
how we should be with our animals. And so and it could be for problems, it could, and what's interesting to me is how simple the solution really is. So
Hmm.
like we go through this whole production and wasting of 5 years when it was really just a simple solution
Right.
to
Right.
healing this. So I don't know. I just know
Yeah.
that there's a lot of power in it. And I would
Yeah.
highly encourage anybody with anything. Even I would even say like doing a healing session to just connect with your horse. Like
Yeah.
I would do
Yeah.
it as, is my horse happy? Is there anything he would like instead?
Yes.
Or does
Uh-huh.
he prefer carrots over apples? That it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, but it's very, I don't think you necessarily have to have a problem to
Sure.
seek out. But I mean, it definitely, if you do have an issue, it would be really helpful.
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing perspective, Lindsay. And the other thing, that I'd like to add, and I appreciate that so much what you shared, is that it's as much a healing process for the caregiver, the primary caregiver of the horse, as it is for the actual horse, because like it or not, there is a very, very powerful energetic exchange between the horse or animal and the human. And if we can create a stronger understanding and bond between the two,
Mhm.
right, then everyone wins, right? Everybody wins. We're essentially raising the frequency of the human and raising the frequency of the animal and connecting a stronger, more grounded bond between the two. So,
And
Lindsay,
what
yeah,
makes me think too, though, is that oftentimes we will go to great lengths for our animals and our children, but we don't do
oh,
it for ourselves. So this would
yes,
be a good opening for people to kind of see they're willing to pay the money to help their
yes,
horse
that's
or
true.
dog or cat, you know
Right,
how we are
right.
about animals.
Uh-huh.
But really it's a great opening to like healing for yourself too.
Yeah.
Because I know you were working with you when you were doing the healing, it was on my mom and Ryder.
Yes,
Like it
that is
wasn't
correct.
just Ryder. So
Yes.
that
Uh-huh.
was just so incredible. I would have never guessed of all the things that we surmised about Ryder's experience and everything.
Mhm.
I never thought it was the connection, my mom's issue. Like,
Right,
it was my
right.
mom's perspective of him detoxing his
Yeah.
emotions. Like I never would
Yeah.
have thought that. So it was, and
Yeah.
the second we realized it, then we're aware, ready to heal it and let it go. And now they don't have to deal with it anymore. So it's just a
Oh,
magical, beautiful thing. And I'm so glad that you were able to do that for us and we're open to it. I know it was a really long, exhausting day, but you
it's
did
okay.
so great.
Oh,
And I
thank
I
you.
hope someday you can come back out and you can put the rubber
Oh,
boots I bought you to some
I
good use.
those are beautiful rubber boots. I've never owned boots like that. I'm super excited. Yeah. And I absolutely love Ryder. Your parents were just and are just amazing souls on this planet. Lindsay, you know, I absolutely adore you. And any extended time I spend with you is always a treat for me. Lindsay, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your story in this interview and
Absolutely.
time today. And I also want to thank you and your parents for being open and brave and reaching out to me for this experience. It is and will always be one of the main highlights of my work as a hypnotist and energy
Yeah.
healer. So I know you and I are going to do more interviews on YouTube and podcast. And so I urge our audience to tune in again for some amazing conversations we're going to have about the spiritual realm. And I'm going
Yeah.
to disconnect now. Lindsay, thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.